Hey guys, on the bench today we have yet another incredibly rare left-handed Ibanez guitar. If you can't already tell what it is, which you probably already can, what we have here is a 30th anniversary Gem 777 in left hand. My God, guys, it cannot possibly get more 80s than this guitar. Find me a better example of an 80s guitar. You're not gonna do it. You're not. This thing is so rad. I have been bugging the owner of this guitar for like 2 years to let me have this thing up on the bench, and finally, it is here. Now I have played now with this all but one of the left-handed gems, and that one left-handed gem is the old Jem555, which is rarer than hen's teeth. I've only seen a few of those in the wild. Maybe one have maybe come to sale. In fact, the last one I actually saw for sale was Steve Vai's own personal collection Jem555 Lefty. And that went for, I don't even remember what it went for, like a stupid price, like 4 or 5 thousand. It was crazy. I don't quote me on that because I'd have to go back and look at the auction records, but it was like multiple times more than it should be worth, because those 555s were just glorified. I think like RG450s, right? I believe they were Korean made, not even Indonesian. They were not that great. Um, but of course, back in the day when there were no other gems, I kind of lusted after that one, to be honest with you, back in the old gem site days, because we had no other gem. So looking at that, it was like, oh my God, that was incredible. But of course, since then, the 7V came out many years later, more than a decade later, I believe. And I actually owned one. It was my main playing guitar for, I would say, almost a decade. So I am intimately familiar with how the 7V plays. In fact, that's why I was so excited to get this up on the bench and play this for a little bit, to compare it to the 7V as well as the RG550 Genesis and the original 550, which I both have extensive amounts of playtime on. So it's going to be really interesting for me to compare this to those other gems and the Genesis 550, because I guess at the end of the day, you can really kind of look at this as like a super mega fancy 550, which, back in the day, the 777 was the 550 that was just all dressed up, right? It had the handle, the different inlays, the lion's claw, but the bare bones of them both, the skeleton of them both, were both the 550s, right? The base model of what they were based off of. But this thing is so rad. It is just absolutely cool. Now this thing, I'm pretty sure now that I played it for like 5 minutes. I think I played it more than the owner has played it. This thing is a true case queen. Still has plastic on everything. Not a scratch or dent anywhere to be found. Knock on wood. God forbid anything. This is not going to be out of its case unless I'm working on it. Something like this definitely makes me nervous. Because this is probably one of the most expensive left-hand Ibanez guitars out there. Maybe even the second most expensive, second or third. I've always loved this fretboard. I don't know about you guys. Not only am I an ancient Egypt nut, just the inlays themselves are so cool. I love the idea of the disappearing pyramid, and it's just so cool. Right? I mean, come on. So cool. So I wanted to at least document it, to kind of go over it, because I don't think anybody's ever really done any extensive, videos or pictures of this thing. So if you've ever wanted to get one of these things, you can at least kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. But this, like I said, this thing is an absolute case queen. This came right from my old buddy over at Ibanez Rules, Rich Harris. I think this was his last one. I think he had this one for a while. I think this was sitting in stock because it's expensive, right? And it was basically been in its case for like the last 4 or 5 years. So it's here now, getting a fresh tune-up, getting it ready to be played so that the owner can finally experience this awesome thing. Because even though it's a case clean, it deserves to be played every once in a while. It's like a car. You don't want to just put it away and never start it or drive it, right? I mean, look at that. I mean, clean, guys. You're not going to find another cleaner one on the market ever. Not to say it's not on the market, but in the wild, I mean, maybe there's some of the case cleans of this thing, but I mean, it is just absolutely incredible. Like I said, it's been sitting for a while, so she definitely needs a go through, polishing up and adjusting, and all the fun things that need to go with that. But it shouldn't be that big of a deal to get her up and running, especially considering the last person to set this up was Rich. And if you know Rich, he knows how to set up guitars. So in fact, I learned most of how I set up guitars from him. So I trust that any weird issues like I found on like the 600 series or the 5000 series with like neck pocket issues and things like that, you're not going to get that with this thing. He's gone through this thing already, so if it's already needed a shim, it's already in there. If the trem needed shims, it would already be there because he knows what he's doing. But I mean, super rad. So the history of the 777, we never had an original. Right? We only had 550s back in the 80s. So when these came out in 2017, right? Yeah, I believe 2017, because 87 to 2017 was the 30th anniversary. Ibanez did bless us with two. We were supposed to get the green, and I'm sure you've seen my other video from years back, from 2017 when these were announced. They originally had promised us a run of the Loch Ness greens, but at the last second, for some absolutely unknown reason, it was denied. My guess, if I had to guess, there was probably two different reasons, two possible reasons why we never got the Loch Ness green. One would be they just ran out of production time or limited on paint, and they just didn't have enough paint, so they just scrapped the idea. Or two, they realized that if they did a green run of these, see, the Loch Ness green was always the rare version, the like super collectible one, whereas the pink and the yellow were sort of like the normal versions. So if they had done green, that could have potentially put a much higher premium on those. And it's possible that non-left-handed players might want to collect those. I mean, that's kind of a guess. So it's like, it could be like one of those two combinations. Who knows? Those are just pure speculation guess. We will never truly know why, unless they came on and told us, but they're never going to do that. But again, thankfully, we got the pink and the yellow. Now, my understanding, it's never been written in stone, but I believe there's 50 of these and 25 of the pink, making the pink one much rarer. Maybe they thought, the pink's not going to be as popular. It's not a masculine color, blah, 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 whatever. Honestly, I love the pink. I think the pink is absolutely amazing as well. It's that color right there. That's the pink. It's sort of like the opposite colors. And I would have loved to see the pink too, but hey, whatever. I'm not going to complain. I got this. They're identical guitars, just with different colored paint schemes, and pickup colors and knob colors and stuff like that. But otherwise, they're identical. Now, the other big difference there's a couple differences between this and the original 777 run, the right-handed run. The biggest difference, I think, for this is the pickups. For some unknown reason, maybe this is what I'm assuming this is what Steve wanted. These are Evos. The original 777s came with PAF Pros. Huge tonal differences. I've always been under the impression playing the Jem777V, as well as putting Evos in other non-7V guitars, non-alder body guitars like basswoods, stuff like that they just don't respond the same. They seem to be tuned. Evos seem to be tuned the best to alder guitars. This is the 7V. Anything else that they go in tends to be overly shrilly, because they are a very shrilly, a very treble heavy shrilly pickup. Which, if you know Steve, I mean, harmonics and feedback and all that crazy stuff. So it makes sense from his playing perspective, but for most people, it's too much. It's like somebody just put the treble on 11. And in basswood, which this is a basswood body, basswood, however you want to pronounce it, basswood, right? They just are just overly shrilly. They lack bottom end. I know tone wood, electric guitars, blah blah blah, but there's definitely some different responses in the EQ that you get. The tones, the sound's going to be mostly the same, but feedback, sustain is going to be different in different body woods. That's what I've always found. Each to their own. You could argue that point till it's been argued to the moon. But I've had enough experience with Evo pickups where I could definitely tell the difference. I loved them in my 7V. I never wanted to change them out. They just responded perfectly. But this, I feel like, should have had the PAFs. Like the original 777s should have had the original PAFs to kind of keep, not only keep with the tradition, but Evos just don't belong in anything other than alder-bodied guitars. Again, that's my opinion. That's from playing them for over a decade. Maybe you've had different experiences, and you can certainly comment on that. But that's what I've come across. But again, guys, I think this thing is just super, super rad. I mean, come on, how cool, right? Super, 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 super cool. Like I said, I played it for 5 minutes just to kind of get familiar with it, get to see how it's playing, see if there's any problems with it right off the bat. Nothing that isn't gonna be fixed within just standard adjustments in the string change and stuff like that. From what I can tell, it plays great, but they obviously need a good polishing, good adjustment. They're a little high. I think the action's off, obviously. The relief is off, so we'll get that all straightened up. But man, this thing is so cool. Original edge. This does have a backstop. Something that this is going to be the first time I've ever seen a backstop. They didn't exist until these came back out. Well, they existed, but not until they had no re-releases of them since the late 80s there, 87, 88. I think after like 88, I think they went the way of the dodo. There may even been a lawsuit with them. I'd have to look that up. If memory serves me right, I think the backstop had a lawsuit. There's a couple different lawsuits. That had a lawsuit at the palm rest. These also, some of the very early 777s also had the palm rest, which actually I know somebody that makes them now. So if you're interested in a remake of the palm rest, if you have one of these, any of the edge for the edges, super cool. I think was it Godo? It might have been Godo that did a cease and desist on those as well. You can check all that online. It's plenty of stories about that online. But they never re-released the palm rest, only the trem stopper, only the backstop. Which to find an original backstop, God, those things are going for like $200 or $300, which is mind-boggling to me. There's obviously better options, but if you want to stay original, that they did re-release them. I don't believe that they made many more than what went in these. So there's no like new old stock. I haven't seen them. I've searched for them. I haven't found any new old stock backstops. And if you do, they're probably extremely expensive. Again, $200, $300, $400 probably easily. But yeah, so this thing has all the bells and whistles to it, including the backstop. And my understanding, talking to the original owner of this guitar, when he bought it from Rich, and when I open this up, I'm gonna take a look in the back and see what happened. Apparently, I don't know if it was in the routing when they routed these guitars out on the CNC. My guess is, before looking at this, that they didn't have the drop shelf. That there used to be a little cutout shelf beneath the strings, not strings, but the springs in the back, where the backstop would sit down flush. And so I'm wondering if that was not present in this, because he said that there was a problem with those and that he had to route out the back for the backstop. So it's been modded to that degree just for the backstop, for the originality, done by Rich Harris at Ibanez Rules. So to me, that doesn't distract from this at all. It just makes it more exactly like they were originally back in the 87. So super back in the 87, back in 1987. But yeah, super cool. 5-way. Love the green knobs. I don't know if those are the original color or if the original 777s were darker. And if I remember correctly, I'd have to go back and look. I feel like the original 777 pink were almost more translucent, but I could be wrong. When you look at the pictures of them, it's been 30 years, so they fade and change over time. The knobs might darken over time. And sometimes you're not going to get things exactly perfect between, from 30 years ago. Whatever the formulas that they used for plastic on these from DiMarzio might have changed. The pigments might have changed a little bit, with the knobs and stuff. So if you notice, too, this pink, actually, yeah. See, this pink has almost like a, if you compare this to that, it's almost like a purple, right? It's a lighter pink. And looking for knobs and stuff like that throughout the years, I do recall that it was very hard to find some of these colored knobs and stuff like that. So, when they re-released these, they may have tried to get as close to possible. But again, without having them side by side, it's just conjecture at this point. But yeah, super, super awesome, guys. Let me know what you think.